So sadly, we now actually have to talk about Alexander Isak, but maybe more just not about Isak, but maybe more as, like you mentioned it, Jeff, player power as a whole. Like, Ali, do you think we're setting a dangerous precedent now? Because you look at the two players that have arguably acted the worst in this window, and the two of them have got their big moves to the clubs they wanted to go to, whilst Marc Guehi, he's now sat there. Nothing to do with, Palace. This isn't Palace's fault at all. I think it's Liverpool's fault. But we are looking at it like the two players, they've refused to play and they've got their big moves.
Well, absolutely, as it answer your question, but there's nothing we can do about it. But the players in layman's terms, kind of throwing the toys out the pram and decided they want to move. And because of finances, effectively, Olivia, Jeff, they've got their wish. Because clubs can't afford the depreciation of the player by not allowing them to move and keep them an unhappy player at the club. And this is effectively what's happened. There'll be a lot of players, a lot of fans would rather have said, right, stick them in the reserves for 6 months. But in an ideal world, you could maybe do that. But that ain't happening. Not because of the finances involved and the cost to the clubs in terms of transfer money. But is it a good sign? No. Is it a good message to send out from both players? Absolutely not, Olivia.
But just, Jeff, it almost puts the clubs in a really awkward position where they basically then don't have any control over what happens. They basically go, well, we're a business, we need that money, and so we have to sell regardless of how the player acts.
Yeah, I get that completely, but Palace have shown that's not the case. Now, it was a unique situation, I think, because they've got a manager there, Oliver Glasner, who's right at the top of his powers at the moment, and reports are that he basically said, look, if we don't keep Marc Guehi, we're off. So that for whatever reason, they've kept Guehi. It's cost Palace £35 million. That's £1 million per Premier League game. But what it did do is show what Glasner demanded. He said, this will show which direction we're heading in. In other words, are we still a selling club, or are we more ambitious? And he and Steve Parish, they've shown they are more ambitious. They've kept Guehi for another season, whatever the cost. So they've bucked the trend, which is great to see from the club's perspective, not from Marc Guehi's perspective, because goodness knows what will happen to him over the next few months.
Liverpool's fault?
I don't think it's Liverpool's fault.
But they could,
Liverpool have come in with a bid.
They not have come in earlier.
Well, couldn't Palace have signed a central defender earlier to allow Guehi to leave? So, I think it's just circumstances. That's all. You can argue that Liverpool could have come in with more money, but that's what they saw, the market value of Marc Guehi. I think it's a massive blow for Liverpool, by the way. Yeah. I thought they had a wonderful transfer window until that deal fell through. And now, I don't know what you think, Coisty, but they've left themselves... left themselves potentially very short.
Anything happens to Virgil, if obviously you don't wish injury on anyone and you hope everyone can stay fit, but they are one Virgil van Dijk injury away from being a real mess at the back, Liverpool.
Well, we said that yesterday, guys, didn't we? We actually said in conversation that we thought that the Guehi move to Liverpool could have been more important to them than the Isak one. And I think you make a really interesting point, Jeff, which I agree with as well. I think you're leaning down the line of, if Palace hadn't won the FA Cup, had they not qualified for Europe, had they hovered about 7th or 8th from the bottom, then the deal would probably have been done. But it hasn't been done due to the position of the manager and the position of the club due to the manager. That's one of the reasons that deal hasn't been done, I think, and I think you're right to point that
out. We're almost out of time. I've got to read this one out, though, Olivia. It says, good morning, gentlemen. It includes you, Olivia, I'm sure, as well. Firstly, absolutely fantastic to listen to Judith Chalmers for what felt like an hour earlier on. Thanks, Ali. This is from Paul, the Palace fan, who says, Paul says, up the British Airways. He said... It's a controversial opinion, but I have to wonder how much Liverpool wanted to get the Guehi deal over the line. I'm pretty sure they did, Paul, but, maybe they didn't want to pay as much as you might have anticipated because he's calling Guehi a £60 million defender. Olivia, thank you very much indeed.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.